Well, hello. Welcome to another episode of the SkyTail Insights podcast. We are here with another episode of our platform series, and I have Darcie, who is president and COO of IA Med Spa with us. So fortunate to have you with the program.
Thanks for having me, Annie.
Yeah. So, before we get started, Aya is sort of one of the newer kids to the block. I guess, not new these days, but relatively speaking, newer kids to the block. I'd love to, if you could just share a little bit about the platform for our audience, that would be fantastic.
Sure, absolutely. As you said, it's a newer platform, but Aya was originally founded in 1998 by Dr. James Namnum, a plastic surgeon in Atlanta with his plastic surgery partners. He recognized the need to provide some non-surgical options to his patients, either as an alternative or post-surgery. And it was really a pioneer in the space before med spas were a thing back in the 90s. He grew the organization to 7 locations in Atlanta, 1 in Dallas, and the focus was on cosmetic injectables, aesthetic treatments with a specialty in lasers, and really a comprehensive approach to skin health overall. Yeah. In 2024, Jim partnered with Eagle Merchant Partners as investment support to begin to expand outside of the Southeast. We entered into the New York market in early 2025. Yeah. And we've got 3 additional locations in New York City and Westchester County now to start our expansion.
Oh, that's great. What, well, first of all, 90s is exceptionally early for medical. I mean, even the OG pure play med spas, I think, were in the 2000s. So that's really an innovative thinker. So I'd also, that's incredibly helpful context. Thank you. It's very fortunate. I think Eagle Merchant is based in Atlanta as well. And I've always found that just proximity never hurts when it comes to building out a leadership team and being close to your founder owners and just really coming up with kind of a synergistic culture. How involved do you say, your partner Eagle Merchant is in the platform today?
They're extremely supportive and as involved and as we need them to. I think, like you said, the proximity, them being in Atlanta, but also their experience in multi-site, multi-market, consumer-facing service organizations has been very helpful in thinking about best practices outside of the med spa space or even the healthcare space, which is where most of my background is. They provide resources and support and also different opinions and kind of guidance as we think about our growth strategy, what they've seen work and not in other spaces.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And also a perfect segue. Just given your background, I'd love if you could share a little bit kind of your career trajectory and how you found yourself at Aya.
Absolutely. So my background is in multi-site healthcare, and I've got a passion for early stage startups and growing organizations. I started in dentistry with a larger organization and really built programs within. So it was dentistry, oral surgery, endodontics, pedos, and that was my first opportunity to build. And I really enjoyed seeing the quick results, the cross-functional collaboration, and being able to move a little bit more quicker than most organizations where there's some red tape. So my first startup was an acquisition-based dental group, Great Lakes Dental Partner in Chicago. We were heavy on the acquisitions, and we did about 29 acquisitions with some strategic mergers in 3 years. I liked the speed. I loved the build and really developing the team and the playbook along the way. Post Great Lakes, I actually moved to New York to start up Tend Dental, which was a much more experience-focused dental organization and probably mirrors as the most closely with the med spa, with the aesthetic space, as you think about being high touch, prioritizing the experience for consumers. We grew 1 to 23 locations, New York, Boston, DC, and Atlanta. So I was familiar with the market, and truly got great insight into what consumers, what patients were looking for in a dental experience, and were able to craft our organization along the way. Post Tend, I joined a mental health organization, spearheading the growth and really strategy of the expansion in New York, along the East Coast, in Washington D.C., New York metro area, and was a really great experience in thinking about how to give back to other healthcare verticals in the mental health space, which is highly needed as I was onto my next adventure. I had been watching the med spa space pretty closely, not only as a healthcare startup operator, but as a consumer as well. Full transparency. It's great.
Same.
Great space to be in, right? So I had been watching it closely, thinking about just it being similar to other verticals of healthcare in the fact that it was fragmented, it was starting to consolidate, and it was a growing segment of the population who were getting services. So as I was exploring that space, I got a call from Eagle and Jim with the Aya team about the opportunity to join them and really spearhead the growth strategy and execution as we thought about Aya's expansion outside of Atlanta.
Well, what a journey. Also, you clearly move quickly. The 29 locations in 3 years, your first dental, 23 locations, I think, in a year at 10. I mean, that's incredible. And I'd say no wonder they were really excited to have you. I think you have to have that appetite to be in a high growth industry like we are. It's really interesting because one of the things I'm asked about by usually private equity firms all the time who are looking for their leadership teams is, where should I find my fill in the blank C-suite? And it's such a new industry. Like, there are very, very few people who have been in leadership roles in the industry for a long time. And so, typically folks are either looking for that special unicorn or going with pattern recognition. Typically coming from either kind of four-wall retail or, I think most often, healthcare. I would be so curious in terms of like your pattern recognition, how you're finding dental and maybe behavioral to compare to your experience building another kind of retail healthcare concept, but of course this one being a little bit more consumer oriented, if you will.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think you mentioned pattern recognition. I think that's truly it. When you look at the key drivers of any multi-site healthcare organization or service organization, there are some similarities. The nuance is always going to be different. It's even different within service lines in the same organization. But if you can start to really identify the key drivers and think about how to impact those, it certainly can help bridge the gap from industry to industry. And you're thinking about things like, your office and provider utilization and capacity. How do we make sure the space we have and the team we have are efficiently filled? We're thinking about productivity metrics per visit, per hour, and how we can continue to stabilize and or improve depending on the scenario. And then certainly things like service mix, conversion, and retention as you're thinking about just effective marketing spend and managing to margins, all kind of parallel other industries in healthcare, retail healthcare.
No, that makes a lot of sense. What is your favorite KPI?
My favorite KPI. Oh, that's a toughie. I've never had to choose just one.
I like a lot of KPIs.
I know. I might like too many, but that's okay. I really think sales per hour or production per hour, as you're thinking about the providers, really the patient treatments that they're recommending and they're accepting, and also just normalizing a really diverse workforce with full-time, part-time team members. You can tell a lot by really starting to think about the productivity per hour. And then that obviously leads to digging into the top performers and how they got to that productivity, how the lower performers have an opportunity to improve. But I think that's one of the metrics that I go to initially in thinking about just understanding the performance.
Yeah, it's such a good call out on, many of the metrics that I think, at first cut, like hours worked or, metrics like that don't work in this space because the fact, the chance of everyone working a 40-hour work week are very low. And so to your point, like how do you compare apples to apples in a way that is fair to everyone? And I also love that, as much as we love a KPI and a number, like what we really need to do is take away like the so what from that number. And so to your point, if someone is high, if someone is low, why? And then what can we essentially do about it? So one of the things that you had mentioned earlier were, what patients are like, when you're talking about dental, kind of understanding what patients are looking for. I'd be really curious in terms of patient journey, what do you find patients are looking for or prioritizing when they're selecting, maybe a dentist or deciding whether to go back versus a med spa?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think about from the consumer experience, right? It's ease to book. Not a lot of friction when you're thinking about finding that appointment and choosing the provider and treatment or initial visit that you want. So I think just the ability to book an appointment easily. There are still some people who like to have a phone call, but the online booking system and being clear, I think is really important in the journey. I think the second piece is really just friendly hours of operation, right? It's access to the appointments at the time and the days that they need. And then post kind of those initial pre-visit touch points, it's about helping people feel welcome, recognizing them, a personalized visit, personalized treatment plan. It's listening, right? Not assuming, projecting, cost, fear, the other things that, would impact a purchasing decision, or the decision to get the treatment done with you, right? So being very aware of all of those factors as you're thinking about building the trust and relationship and coming together with a great treatment plan for the patient and the team.
It's really interesting. We obviously do work in both dental and aesthetics, and we recently did a pretty large survey on aesthetics patients and like what they look for in terms of picking a practice in the first place. And then there's whole other cohort of questions in terms of talking about like why they may stay or why they maybe don't stay. And what's always fascinating to me is that price is not in the top.
No,
it's in the top 10, maybe the top 5, but the top 3 being experience, confidence in your provider, efficacy of treatment, right? Like everything worked. What's beautiful about our space is like if you get, a neurotoxin in your forehead, it will stop moving. So efficacy of treatment is it's one of those industries where it matters, and it happens. But to your point, it's a hospitality play in my experience as much as a healthcare one.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of parallels in the dental space, but I also think orthodontics is probably the most aligned as you think about it being a larger purchase. It's got a larger price point, right? Not covered by insurance in dentistry, some benefits, but kind of the out of pocket cost is very similar. But I think a lot of people are making that initial consultation knowing they want the treatment already. They're looking for the right provider to have it done with, right? So that connection, that communication, and I think starting to build that trust immediately are super important when you think about the high intent customer who probably knows they want Botox or have had it and are looking for a new provider and making them comfortable with you.
I had my, grown up Invisalign, admittedly. Yeah. The decision was made when I was walking into the office.
Totally. It was just, who am I going to get? Who am I going to have it done? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What what has been different in a sense? Like, have you had to unlearn anything from behavioral or dental as you focused on aesthetics in terms of like what makes this industry kind of its own unique ecosystem?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I think first and foremost, the biggest difference is the no revenue cycle, kind of no insurance based portion of healthcare, which is much simpler. Yes, which working with dental, I'm sure you can attest to that as well. So it does simplify just the overall operations, and it allows us to focus more on the treatment and the experience. I think the other pieces that were different, and I don't know that I necessarily had to unlearn anything, but the differences that I've noticed are, it's still very fragmented. Some of the other healthcare sectors have progressed. Groups are much more common, and the aesthetic space is really just on the forefront of that transition. So as we think about our potential partners, even our team members as they're coming on board, it's being much more thoughtful in communicating and making sure there's a comfort level. Introducing metrics in a way that is, it's not scary. It's helpful. It's a tool so that we can all grow. So the fragmentation there is really allowed us to say how do we want to incorporate some of these more business oriented initiatives into our organization. So I think that's one thing. I think the second thing I've had to kind of learn, or it's been a shift, is just how quickly the industry is evolving as well. Like dentistry, it was not that quick. The technology took years and years, and really they were using a lot of the same basics, right, as they had been 10, 20 years. But when you think about like the lasers, the skin tightening, the molecules that are being introduced, the trends that are coming globally into the United States, and the consumers are really on top of. It's being able to evaluate those, understand where the value is, and if it's a good fit for your practice and your providers as well. So
Yeah, it's almost the opposite problem where there are too many new things for you to do
yeah,
everything. And so like having a framework for evaluate new opportunities, because in my experience, they're providers for a reason. They're curious, they love effective
yeah.
treatments, they want the best thing for their patients, right? And so of course they would want the newest, greatest thing. And so how do you have a framework so that everyone feels like their idea is being heard, and evaluated sort of in a consistent way?
Yeah. And how do you measure the outcomes as you're thinking about the patient experience too, right? Like to be able to describe them, to make sure that they're the right candidates for the treatment, and then also have the providers be very confident in recommending it too. So it's the framework to implement, and then I think it's the buy-in and the excitement around it, as you think about blending the new procedures into your culture.
That's a good point. Like one of the things we've learned across the board is if your provider's not excited about it or has a hard time describing it. This is true, especially for like a membership program, for example. It's like the
Yeah.
1 minute test or the 30-second test. Like if it can't be described in a short amount of time really clearly, no one's going to sell it because that's stressful.
Yeah. Yes, it's stressful. It's stressful. It takes away from the clinical treatment that they're doing, and yeah, and make it easy.
The other thing that I've been increasingly noticing about this space being different from the others that we work in and other spaces that we enter is, I think by nature of it being such a new industry, all of the like surrounding services of the industry are also new. So, in dental, you have very, very established EHRs and RCM software and advisors and, like, so the whole supporting function. Whereas in this space, there's a lot of great technology being built, but, for example, CRM, like, is there
No.
one CRM that is kind of can take you all the way from like lead generation to, retention and follow-ups, right? There are some
Yeah.
interesting gaps here that I think we're all just kind of waiting for someone to build the solution for. It's like,
Yeah.
if I had a nickel for every startup idea in this space, I'd be a wealthy woman. I don't know if you see that, but it's something I'm seeing more and more of.
I do. And I think what I've noticed is that a lot of the options, the software options out there, have really adapted from more salon services, thinking about it more from not necessarily the medical perspective of what we're doing, but the overall kind of services, if you will, brows, waxing, things like that. So they work at a baseline level, but the advancement to being a truly medical EMR or clinical EMR that some of the providers need, or from a regulatory perspective, is a little bit lagging as well. And then the other piece is, like you said, there's no end-to-end solution. So it's really good. We've really started to get creative in how we can use our APIs and data to obviously use what we can in our software, but then also start to create and pull data from other sources to create a more personalized flow or communication. Um, so so you've got to get a little creative with all the software that's out there, but I believe that they're also excited to continue to evolve and support the space as it's growing.
And you can see, money sort of coming into the space in terms of financial backers. So I assume that I imagine innovation will accelerate, if you will. But for now, everyone's got to have a data lake. Everyone has to have a lake.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's got a data lake. The first question is always, what do you have an open API?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What are the API options? So,
Well, looking ahead, because we both have those fun jobs where we get to learn because it's our job, and then we also get to learn because it's fun. What are you most excited about when you think about just the future of this industry?
I think the potential of the opportunity of the medical aesthetic space is really exciting to me. Having seen dental early on, and just my experiences with recruitment and kind of the even patient acquisition, and over the course of 15-ish years or so, how much that evolved to be supportive of group practice and the benefits that we all provide. Consistency for our providers. You can provide more development opportunities. And all of that ultimately leads to a great patient experience and great patient outcomes. So I think the fact that the space has so much ahead of it is really, really exciting to me as well. I think the other thing that excites me is the technology. When you see even 5-10 years ago, what some of the lasers, skin tightening devices could do, versus now, it's just really ripe for innovation as we think about the treatments that will be able to provide and the outcomes that we'll achieve. I think as patients it starts to be more accessible. They see the outcomes and really build the confidence around the medical aesthetic treatments that we provide. I think there's going to be more and more engagement and more acceptance of care earlier and longer into aging.
Yeah, I mean, if in a way, every person who leaves your clinic, their face is an advertisement for you.
Yes.
It's like, again, like this stuff actually works. And so, if someone looks fabulous, I'm sure someone's going to ask them kind of where they received that treatment.
Absolutely.
But you're right on the laser. I feel like with lasers, we're on a journey of like, what is the ratio of, relative pain versus downtime versus impact? And I feel like the trend is that less pain, less downtime, better impact. And as someone who's a little bit baby, I'm excited for that trend to just continue moving forward.
Yeah, I think I'm tough, but also one of my providers, my injector, told me the other day he thought I was a little bit of a baby. So I was like, but I'm still going to go with I'm tough, Annie.
Definitely.
I can take a pain.
What, if anything, like as a leader of a platform or, a consumer of the industry, what keeps you up at night in terms of the field?
I don't know that there's anything that necessarily keeps me up at night, but it's a full-time job to stay current with the trends, with the regulations, with the competition and with the risk, right? That we potentially have as a business. So I think when I think about it, it's not necessarily anything that I would say gives me heartburn, but it is certainly something that we're continuing to assess and talk about as we think about new market entry, the regulatory state, and just how to continue to build a strong, compliant, scalable platform into the future.
Yeah, yeah. And it is, I think about this myself as a leader, of an advisory firm. My product is my people. Um,
Mhm.
and in many ways, that is the same for you. Obviously, they're delivering a product, but that delivery could not happen without many, many wonderful providers. And so, when people get involved, things get exciting too. So, uh,
Yeah.
it's just a really operationally intensive business, and so maybe we actually are both really tough that we're here. Uh,
I think so. I think we should go with that.
yes, exactly. Lots of moving
Yeah.
pieces. Um, well, I always love to kind of wrap up with a sort of fun, rapid fire-y section. We can start out with, sort of a two-parter. What is the hardest part of your job? And then what is the most fun part of your job?
Yeah. All right. Hardest part is change management. I think when you're looking at a platform that's growing through acquisitions and de novos, we're looking at a blended approach. But the change management to build an integrated platform is probably the biggest challenge, and it's something that we can overcome. But it does take a strong commitment to communication, explaining the why, supporting our team members who didn't necessarily sign up for this along the way to make sure that they feel comfortable and confident and supported.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, that you and I have talked about this, like the thought that went behind, anytime you have a new practice, the thought that goes behind not only like that integration plan, but like
Mm.
the comms piece on top of that is like, you know, for me, that is like the highest stakes moment, right?
Yes.
The announcement, the town hall, the first meal, what have you. And that's, I think I loved seeing the fact that you all were really, I think, eyes wide open as to the importance of those sort of like soft tissue moments.
Super important. And then having a clear plan for support post close as you're bringing on these new teams. Who's going to be there? When are they going to be there? What's the timeline to expect? I think it helps soften all of those changes as you think about just acceptance and feeling welcome, as opposed to just everything's changing. So the plan heading into it, but then a really clear plan to support post close and really welcome everybody to the team.
Yeah. It's really funny because in my former life, one of the things that I did at my past startup was we acquired a company and sort of smashed it together with a technology company that we'd incubated in San Francisco. And one of the things I learned very early on was anytime I went to the company that we acquired, everyone thought that someone was getting in trouble or fired or they were doing something wrong. It's like
Yeah.
to your
Yeah.
point about I will be visiting the third week of every month to do, office hours and take people to like being really clear beforehand why you're there so that folks don't feel like surveilled in any way. I will take that learning to my next one.
Yeah, it is. And I think just as much as being on the ground for support, it's also about learning what makes the offices special, right? It's about learning their best practices, what makes them tick, what makes them excited, how they treat their patients, because those are really the special things that you don't want to lose post close too. So it's supporting them, but it's also really learning about the team and the offices to make sure that you incorporate those as you grow together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably really interesting for you how even within the same company and platform, just like location to location, there can be just such a different and not good or bad, like just a different ethos or vibe or culture. And it's important to know that because it might help you refine, I suppose, when you're hiring, like certain decisions that you make.
Absolutely. Yes. You always want to be thoughtful about the local culture, and making sure that team members and changes even are a fit, or at least we're aligned in thinking about the value and supporting them.
Yeah.
It's
If you're, thinking of you as a leader, obviously you're a president and a COO, which is incredibly impressive. Do you have any, like, for the listeners and selfishly me, do you have any like lessons learned or sort of key mantras that you think about?
Yeah. So I think, and you'd actually touched on this earlier, but I think communication is the key piece in leading a team, and in supporting a field organization. It can also be challenging in an early stage startup environment, early stage organization environment, where you don't have as many resources. You're moving quickly. There is a lot of change. So just not underestimating the importance of a thoughtful plan, follow up, and making sure you're intentional about bringing everybody along. Probably is the first lesson, kind of pivotal thing, that I've learned and always try to keep with me.
Yeah. And I think that point you shared with follow-up is so key
Yeah.
because there's like, if you say you'll do something and have a plan, closing that loop there, and just, signaling that you do it, but also I think it just helps build that like foundation of trust,
Yes.
which for me is, one of sort of my pillar learnings is to take from the bank account. You actually have to have a little bit in the bank account in terms of like emotional, professional, personal buy-in, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's a bank. You deposit the trust, and it needs to be there before you
Yeah.
can draw.
Yeah, exactly. Because you'll have to at some point,
Yeah. Exactly.
it is work after
Yeah.
all. Um, when you look back, what are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? Healthcare is a people business, right? We've got providers, highly specialized, skilled providers. We are treating patients, who are looking to us for help, with a concern, a problem, something that they just want to improve. So when you think about healthcare in general, and medical aesthetics is healthcare. What we're doing is healthcare. It's really about the people
Yeah.
that you work with. And when I think about what I'm the most proud of, it is the relationships and teams that I've built throughout my career. You're committed to them just as much as the outcomes in the organization, and being able to watch them develop and progress in their careers, even after we may have parted ways, not worked together any longer, but really being there to support them and see them continue to grow, I think makes me the most proud. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I know you've brought over at least one person from a former life to this platform leadership team, which I think is such a testament to, that's a compliment to you as a leader because she could have said no. It makes for, clearly such a wonderful culture, and, you can just hit the ground running when you know how someone works. So that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and a really dynamic industry that helps tremendously. It's allowed us to move a lot quicker, and also, try to have a little fun as we're thinking about building the culture too.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, Darcie, it was fun. It was a treat to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for joining the SkyTail Insights podcast, and I will look forward to our next conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to connecting soon.